Good afternoon, brothers and sisters. Today is Thursday, the 2nd of April. It is 12:57. We're going to start off with a South saying. It's coming from Psalms 4:3. But know that the Lord has set for him that is godly for himself. The Lord will hear when I call unto him. Amen. The Lord has set apart him that is godly for himself. The Lord will hear when I call unto him. Psalms 4:3. The back of it is coming from Philippians 4:9. The God of peace shall be with you. The God of peace shall be with you. And that is a promise. Good afternoon to you. We're going to continue with our reading of Esther. We started off yesterday. I introduced Esther to you, the Jewish girl. Mordecai, a family member. The son of Hammedatha is Haman, and the king. And Haman has just been promoted. Mordecai refuses to bow down to him, which angers Haman. And we're going to continue with chapter 4 of this same story. Chapter 4 has 17 verses. It's beginning with orange for your faith. We have green for love. We have some silver for history. And then the last verse 9 to verse 17 is pink for witnessing. Okay, so let's continue the story and see what happens. In chapter 4, Mordecai encourages Esther to help the Jews by interceding with the king. Okay, she is now the queen. So back in the biblical time, you could not just come and see the king. You had to wait until the king summoned you. So she had to do the unusual. She had to actually go and request to see the king. So let's see how this plays out. All right, verse 1, 2, and as always, we'll be reading it from the Rainbow Bible, and then I will be translating it from the New International Bible. Verse 1, when Mordecai perceived all that was done, Mordecai rent his clothes and put on sackcloth with ashes. Now, this is because Haman had put out a proclamation through all the prerequisites for the Jews to be destroyed. So he was a Jew. Okay, so you can see why he's ripping his clothes. All right. When Mordecai perceived all that was done, Mordecai rent his clothes and put on sackcloth with ashes and went out into the midst of the city and cried with a loud and bitter cry. Okay, verse 2. And came even before the king's gate, for none might enter into the king's gate clothed with sackcloth. Weren't allowed to go into the king's gate with sackcloth. Okay, 3. In every province, wheresoever the king commanded, and his decree came, there was great mourning among the Jews, and fasting and weeping and wailing, and many laid in sackcloth and ashes. So this was a very terrible time indeed. Okay, let's read it from here, 1 to 3. Chapter 4. Here we are. When Mordecai persuades Esther to help. When Mordecai learned of all that had been done, he tore his clothes, put on sackcloth and ashes, and went out into the city, wailing loudly and bitterly too. But he went only as far as the king's gate, because no one clothed in sackcloth was allowed to enter it. 3. In every province to which the edict and order of the king came, there was a great mourning among the Jews, with fasting, weeping, and wailing. Many laid in sackcloth and ashes in the street. Okay, so this news was bad news to all Jews. And as you can imagine, Mordecai was not the only one grieving. Anyone that was a Jew at the time also grieved. The Jews during the Nazi time also grieved bitterly. Okay, because this was a terrible thing to come upon the people of God. All right. 4 and 5 is green for love. So Esther's maid and her chamberlains came and told it to her. Now she's getting word of what's going on. Okay. Then was the queen exceedingly grieved, and she sent remnants to clothe Mordecai, because he had ripped his clothes. So she sent him clothes, and to take away his sackcloth from him, but he received it not. He refused it. 5. Then called Esth.4 Hatash, one of the king's chamberlain, whom he had appointed to attend upon her, and gave him a command to Mordecai to know what it was and why it was. So let's read it from here. 4 and 5. When Esther's maid and Enoch came and told her about Mordecai, she was in great distress. She sent clothes for him to put on instead of his sackcloth, but he would not accept them. 5. Then Esther summoned Hatashi, one of the king's Enoch, assigned to attend her, and ordered him to find out what was troubling Mordecai and why. Okay. 6 to 8 is silver for history. So Hatash went forth to Mordecai unto the streets of the city, which was before the king's gate. 7. And Mordecai told him of all that had happened unto him, and of the sum of the money that Haman had promised to pay to the king's treasurer for the Jews to destroy them. 8. Also, he gave him the copy of the writing of the decree that was given at Shushan to destroy them, to show it unto Esther, and to declare it unto her, and to charge her that she shall go in unto the king, to make supplications unto him, and to make requests before him for her people. Okay, because she too was a Jew. All right, let's take it here from 6 to 8. So Hatasha went out to Mordecai in the open square of the city in front of the king's gate. 7. Mordecai told him everything that had happened to him, including the exact amount of money Haman had promised to pay into the royal treasury for the destruction of the Jews. 8. He also gave him a copy of the text of the edict for their annihilation, which had been published in Susa, to show to Esther and explain it to her. And he told him to urge her to go into the king's presence, to beg for mercy and plead with him for her people. All right. Now, 9 to 10, this is what happens next. Let's see what she does. 9. And Hatash came and told Esther the word of Mordecai. Again, 10. Again Esther spake unto Hatash and gave him commandments unto Mordecai. 11. All the king's servants and the people of the king's province do know that whosoever, whether man or woman, shall come unto the king unto the inner court, who is not called, there is one law of his to be put to death, except such to whom the king shall hold out the golden scepter, that he may live. But I have not been called to come in unto the king these 30 days. So she's saying to him that there is a strict law when it comes to being able to see the king. And if you broke these laws, death will be your reward. And she is saying that she has not seen the king in 30 days. All right? She needs courage. Courage she will obtain. Okay? 12. And they told to Mordecai Esther's words. 13. Then Mordecai commanded to answer Esther, Think not with thyself that thou shalt escape the king's house more than all the Jews. So he is reminding her, don't think that you will escape that which is coming their way because you're in the king's house. For you are also a Jew. And it applies to all Jews, great and small. Okay? Then Mordecai commanded, I'm going to repeat that, to answer Esther, think not with thyself that thou shalt escape in the king's house more than all the Jews. Okay, 14. If thou altogether holdest thy peace at this time, if you say nothing at this time, then shall there enlargement and deliverance arise to the Jews from another place, but thou and thy father's house shall be destroyed. And who knoweth whether thou art come to the kingdom for such a time as this? Then she was in the house of the king for such a time as this. She was there. Okay? God knows what he's doing. He always does that which is right in his own sight. All right? He always has an escape plan already set in place. And Esther was a part of that plan. Okay? 15. Then Esther bade them return Mordecai his answer. 16. Go gather together all the Jews that are present in Shushan, and fast ye for me, and neither eat nor drink. Okay, she's doing that which is right now. She's doing that which is spiritual. Okay? When you're battling a spiritual battle, you must deal with it spiritually. Okay? There are certain battles we battle in life. Some are natural, some are spiritual. You cannot battle the natural. You can battle the natural in a natural form. But the spiritual, you must deal with it in a different form, in a spiritual form. Okay? So this was a spiritual battle. Okay? This is why she was telling the people to do as we're about to read. Go gather together all the Jews that are present in Susan, and fast ye for me, and neither eat nor drink 3 days, night or day. I also and my maidens will fast likewise, and so will I go in unto the king, which is not according to the law. She's about to break the law now, okay? And if I perish, I perish. Amen. 17. So Mordecai went his way and did according to all that Esther had commanded them. So, of course, all of the Jews did as the queen required. They fasted. They did not eat anything for 3 days and 3 nights. And she and her handmaid did the same thing. Now, we don't know if her handmaids were Jews. They might have been Persians. But they were required to fast as well, because she was in a spiritual battle and she was about to break a natural law. Okay? So she needed what? God's protection. All right. She needed what? God's favor. All right. Let's read it from here. Okay? Her courage is being built up. Okay? So let's take it from 9 to 17. Hathashah went back and reported to Esther what Mordecai had said. Then she instructed him to say to Mordecai, 11, all the king officials and the people of the royal province know that for any man or woman who approaches the king in the inner court without being summoned, the king has but one law, that he be put to death. This was a law. And just like today's laws, certain laws you cannot break. The consequences are serious. But in the biblical time, the difference is that when you broke a law in the biblical times, your punishment will come swiftly, without delay. Today, you can commit a horrendous crime, be tried, and given that which you do not deserve, life. Life, brothers and sisters, is a gift. Now we are rewarding those evildoers, wickedness, with a gift of life. So this is why I always get so angry when a person does something horrendous. And when death is their reward, according to the Bible, they get a gift, life. Who do you think takes care of them? The taxpayers. For every person on a life sentence for the rest of their days is taken care of by the taxpayers. So when they hang themselves, the people get upset because they want a conviction coming out of their mouth. No. Death is their punishment. And death is an appropriate punishment that we should still be using. And there is no reason why a person should be on death row for more than 30 days. It is no reason for them to be on death row for more than 10 days. When they receive that death sentence, that thing should come immediately. That is the greatest deterrent. But if you allow them to live on death row for 15, 20 years, what kind of deterrent is that? None. And this is why crime continues to rise. There's no deterrent at all. We encourage it when we do not handle things according to the ways of God and the wills of God. When you are given the death sentence, it should come immediately, not 5, 10, or 15 years later. The only exception to this, I'm going to read 11 again. All the king officials and the people of the royal province know that for any man or woman who approaches the king in the inner court without being summoned, the king has but one law, that he be put to death. The only exception to this is for the king to extend the gold scepter to him and spare his life. But 30 days have passed since I was called to go to the king. 12. When Esther's words were reported to Mordecai, 13, he sent back this answer. Do not think that because you are in the king's house, you alone of all the Jews will escape. That was a good warning. Because the law applied to all Jews, outside the house of the king and in the king's house as well. And don't think for a minute that Haman would let her escape death at all. For he had a hatred for Jews. 14. For if you remain silent at this time, relief and deliverance for the Jews will arise from another place, but you and your father's house will perish. And who knows but that you have come to a royal position for such a time as this. Amen. And he was correct. Okay. 15. Then Esther sent this reply to Mordecai. Now she's deciding she's going to get into this battlefield. Okay. And this is what she wants her people to do. Go gather together all the Jews who are in Susa and fast for me. Do not eat or drink for 3 days, night or day. I and my maids will fast as you do. When this is done, I will go to the king, even though it is against the law. And if I perish, I perish. There is nothing more precious than a brave warrior, a brave soul, willing to die for a good cause. We see them occasionally pop up in our world. When the politicians just last year were at a playing golf, and someone pulled out a gun and started shooting at the politicians. At that same moment and at that same hour, God had already placed those that would deliver them. They came already packing with heat. There have been many incidents. There was a church service at one time and someone started shooting in the church. One of the parishioners came with their weapon that day and saved many. So courageous people are God always places them just where they need to be. Always. That's why God should always get the glory. Not the person who did the good thing. It should always be God, because it is God who has set that person in place, in the same way God has placed this Jewish queen in place for such a time as this, like her cousin said. Okay, 17, and she was willing to die for it. It happened in the Twin Towers. When that third airplane was on its way to the tower, God placed a certain individual to stop. Bravery does not come from man. It comes from God, period. You cannot go to the grocery store, cook it, and eat it and become brave. No, that is a spiritual thing. It is something man has no control over. Okay? 17, so Mordecai went away and carried out all of Esther's instructions. Okay, so now we're seeing this thing starting to build up. Okay, and the outcome of it we will read about tomorrow in chapter 5. But in the end, chapter 6, but in the end, we always get what we get. If you sow that which is good, good will come to thee. If you sow that which is evil, evil will befall you. So let's see how this story plays out. Because in all reality, this is the way things go, whether it's in the Bible or in our world today. So learn to do good and not that which is evil. Thank you very much for listening to us here at Spiritual Water. My name is Brenda Guerrero, and as always, may the peace of God be upon you, may the protection of God surround you, and may the will of God come from thee. Please enjoy the rest of this day, and please join us tomorrow.